Get 5 coffins ready.
Hey, how's it going everyone? Shinmoki here. About a year ago, I released my Battle of the Betas video, which did terribly, but I had fun making it, and it's cool going back and seeing what I thought of the games at the time. So let's take a look at these games a year later and see how my original thoughts hold up to how I actually feel about how they turned out. And just to be clear, I'll be going into this with the pretext that you've seen videos on or have played these games for yourself. Writing out absolutely all of the mechanics, when most people have already watched tens of critical videos on the games or have played them for themselves, seems unnecessary. Where to begin is a tough decision, but I think I'll just start with the easy one. Halo Infinite has been a disappointment, I think we're all in agreement. But it's, for me, the most frustrating of the releases because it's let down by the dumbest reasons possible, to the point that it almost feels intentionally dumb. But first let's talk about the good stuff. All of the good I talked about in the original video is still here. Solid maps, good movement and gunplay, great visuals and sound. I mean, the base is there for a great game. Everything about the game visually and audibly is very deliberate and meshes extremely well together, making the game feel tight as a drum. But the abundance of netcode related bugs does tamper with this a little bit. And that's where the praise ends, really. The very core of Halo Infinite is solid, but then it goes and implodes in on itself like a black hole. Unfortunately, Halo Infinite itself isn't even interesting enough to be called a black hole though, because there just isn't much going on. The new armor sets are almost all exclusively paid, and have a very clear distinction away from the armor sets that we came to know and love from Bungie's time with the game. Instead, opting for way over the top armor designs that look cool on first glance, and then start to look more and more ridiculous the more time you spend looking at them. Gun and vehicle skins are hilariously weak too. I mean damn, I know the game is free and everything, but most Call of Duty challenge camos look better than these paid skins. But okay, that stuff isn't really important, so what holds Infinite back? It is, quite simply, the most asinine first-person shooter I've ever seen. Firstly, there's a deserter penalty. Why? It's a free-to-play first-person shooter. Do you really think I want to play out every single match I queue up for? Dropping out of unfun matches is the cornerstone of first-person shooters like this. It's not CSGO or Rainbow Six where losing a teammate for a bit can seriously affect the game state. And it's not like new players dropping in would create too much chaos. Like, what kind of game do you think you are? This is Halo, where 8-foot-tall superhumans wearing goofy-looking spacesuits shoot and punch at each other. It's supposed to be fun, not some cutthroat competitive shooter. Of course, if this was only in ranked play, this would be no problem at all. Totally understandable to have those rules. But just the precedence of, oh, if you queue up, you better be ready to play it out. Like, fuck you, Brian, I can leave if I want. I know it's a free game, so maybe like you get a deserter if you leave 3 or more games within an hour, but yeah, no compromises whatsoever here. It's a common theme in Infinite's design. You know what happens when people download your free game and realize they can't leave matches and queue for another one if they aren't having fun? They stop playing the game. Speaking of queuing up, the objectively dumbest decision in all of AAA gaming becomes apparent. You cannot queue for specific game modes. I'm at a loss for words. There are so many shit game modes in this game, it's just so annoying. Now, if I've learned anything from COD and Battlefield, it's that game modes outside of your basic deathmatches and simple objectives do die off within the first minutes of the game's release. But surely there must be a better solution to get people to play a wider variety of game modes. Or maybe don't include so many, especially after the community makes it clear they don't want to play them. This leads us neatly into the Battle Pass. It's shit. It being one of the most grindy battle passes on the market is okay, I guess. I mean, it's a free-to-play AAA quality game. I get it. But you have to level it solely by challenges. Challenges such as playing specific game modes, which you can't queue for directly, and of course challenges involving specific guns, which you have no control over whether or not they'll spawn in a given match. And you can't leave if you don't get what you need for your quest because you get a deserter. And this is the game's cycle. Because there's almost no base unlockables or in-game currency, the focus is almost completely through this battle pass. And by extension, this horrible cycle. I'm not even mad about it or anything because it's just so blatantly not smart and unfun to progress that it's like, why even complain about it? The whole system is so dumb that I've had my friends break it down for me like 4 times because I'm just in disbelief of it. If you just explained what a game mode and Battle Pass are to an infant, then explain how the Battle Pass in Halo Infinite works, they would probably not understand a word you're saying, but you get my point. With Infinite, it's like I want to hop on every now and again because it can be fun. But it's like I know that if I got onto a map or a game mode I don't like, I'm either stuck in that match worsening my experience, or that's it for my Halo session for the night. It's just lame. To reiterate, this is just also frustrating because it feels like Infinite should have been the best out of the big 3 released last year, but it's actually up for debate as to which one's the best thanks to such asinine design choices. One that could technically be called the best is, surprisingly enough, Vanguard. Vanguard is... Since I started out with the good on Halo, let's talk about some of the good of Vanguard. The gunplay is excellent. It's every bit as sharp and as fun as Modern Warfare 2019, and the weapons are immaculately modeled and a joy to use. The maps and player models look great too. The locations, while still dulled a little by the very gloomy aesthetic of this and Modern Warfare before it, are mostly nice to look at, and most of the visual noise issues that were in the beta are rectified, although it can still of course get a little jumbled if there are too many explosions at once, which definitely happens in Vanguard. On that note, the optimization was great through and through. My 1080 was able to crack 144 FPS consistently with a bit of fiddling, and my newer 2080 makes mincemeat of the game with DLSS on, which is what you're watching here. There were certainly visual and especially audio bugs in the earlier stages of Vanguard's lifetime, but I'd say for a good half of its life, the experience has been nearly bug-free. But remember when I said the maps were nice to look at? Well, that certainly doesn't mean they're nice to play on. And this to me was the biggest downfall of Vanguard, the maps. Ugh, just way too many blind spots, dead zones, OP camping locations, and just blatantly unfair angles on maps like Decoy, Numa Numa, Castle, Paradise, Gavutu, Gondola, and Oasis especially. Oh, right, the spawns. There are true spawn traps on maps in a game from 2021. On multiple maps too, like, what? And while most of the spawns have been ironed out, you still spawn in front of enemies or vice versa on some maps, and that happens on every map in that stupid patrol game mode. Sometimes Vanguard just feels like Infinity Ward dropped a DIY kit for a Call of Duty game, and a bunch of fans came up with Vanguard. Like, it's not awful, but it has so many aspects about it that are just so poorly executed. Like the gunsmith and the grinding for the weapons themselves. You can have an attachment on every attachment slot available, which totals up to 10 on every single primary weapon in the game. Sounds great, right? Well, no, as it's one of the most homogenized systems in all of COD history. And how could it not be? With over 70 attachments on every single gun, they had no choice but to add the literal same attachments with the literal same stats. That means that if a gun by default is better than another, no amount of tinkering with your setup on the weaker gun is ever going to make the weapon viable. This is worsened by the fact that shotguns, snipers, and especially marksman rifles are complete non-factors on most maps, due to a very blatant balance discrepancy between the cores, SMGs, and ARs and the rest of the cast. But if you want to stand a chance on those guns, you have to level them, all the way to level 70, on every single weapon. That is just way too much, and they knew that they messed up because pretty much every other week there's a double weapon XP for the entire week. Other than the Bar and the Bren for a bit, every single meta weapon is an automatic gun with a high rate of fire and no recoil. Okay, sounds like COD, but at least in prior games you stood a chance with other weapons, particularly snipers and marksman rifles with some practice. Here, if you pick anything other than a meta weapon, you're done. You're never winning a gunfight against any decent player. You do get a wide array of weapons, now that everything's said and done, and there really are a lot of guns that perform well, but again, they just all feel the same. They're all mobile, all high rate of fire, all lasers, and in one case I mean that literally. Which brings me to the bundles and blueprints in the game. What the fuck? I'm not one of those people who acts deeply offended when a game is set in World War II and it isn't historically accurate to the bone, but man, talk about being all over the place atmospherically. The music themes, gore, and campaign all lead you to believe that this is meant to be taken seriously. Then you have a 1940s version of F-Dot as an announcer shoutcasting in your ear while Godzilla shoots at you with a T-800's laser gun. I'd be totally fine with that if Vanguard was just bonkers out of the gate. Not to mention, it opened the game up to having more unique weapons, modern, World War II, and made up futuristic ones like in the Wolfenstein universe. Instead, Vanguard is a very uneven tasting sandwich, with flavorless American cheese, topped with Spam and ghost peppers, all wrapped up in some cozy, lukewarm lettuce. It doesn't taste terrible, it just leaves you thinking, why? But no game leaves you asking why quite like Battlefield 2042. This game has seen a resurgence in recent times with countless videos saying how much the game has improved, and honestly, they're not wrong. But do not buy this game. Nuh-uh. Never. Nada. Unless you get the game for free, do not play this piece of shit game. Funny enough, back in around April when I was considering doing a Battle of the Betas revisit, I was going to be all apologizing for the game and saying how DICE were trying their best, but with the absurd amount of videos that are just sucking the game's dick for simply being functional now is absurd to me. I know what you're thinking. Oh, you're just mad that you couldn't be the contrarian that you wanted to be, and that's a fair assumption. But with the sheer number of people playing the game after public opinion has shifted, especially after Halo Infinite's non-stop follies, it makes it feel like everyone just forgot that the game was a complete unplayable mess for the first 8 months of its release. But yet it's still buggy. The vehicles are still unbalanced. Most of the maps are abhorrent. The weapon balancing is laughable, the specialists are unnecessary and also horribly unbalanced. You seriously only need like 3 of them. Your gun still doesn't hit people who are right in front of you sometimes. Everything that was wrong with the game is still wrong with the game, just to a lesser degree. And I think people are getting the wrong idea about the state of the game. For those of us stuck with the game since we purchased it already, sure, fine. The improvements are nice and it's been cool to play the game closer to how it should have been. But the game is still ass! Don't buy it! Not only am I saying that to try and save you some money, I mean, just go play Battlefield 1 or 5 if you want want some Battlefield in your life. But it also just sets a precedent of, well, we can just release a game that's practically an alpha state, and so long as we make it into an acceptable state within a year, we'll still make our money back from bored and curious gamers. It's by far the worst example of this in all of AAA gaming history, and it's not even close. To reiterate, fuck this game. Fuck DICE, don't buy it. Good night. Sorry if I got a little too heated for your liking. It's ironic how I went from wanting to protect 2042 from viewers to trying to protect viewers from 2042. This year for AAA games was a sad affair. From the disappointment of Infinite to the slow descent of Vanguard and the complete train wreck that is 2042, it's easy to see why every single free-to-play game are seeing record-breaking numbers. It's pretty easy to see that most of these games' development were badly affected by the pandemic, and I think we all get that. But it's still a sorry state of affairs, and I worry that it's caused a domino effect for AAA games that will see them released well below par for the foreseeable future. A bit of a gloomy note to end on, but unfortunately that's just kind of the reality we're stuck with when it comes to these three games. Well, what do you guys think about these games? Did you have fun? Did you love them? Did you hate them? Let me know why, and thanks for watching. If you queue up, you better be ready. If you queue up, you better be ready. You cannot queue for buy this game. Never. Nida.